hi, everybody. We want to welcome you as you're logging in. We're so glad to have you with us today for Parent Forum English number 44. We have been doing this a while with our friend Dr. Eran Magen, and today's topic is one that we know is really important and has been very popular. This is strengthening trust and goodwill with your child or teen. We felt that this was a really good topic, especially for the holiday season, because we tend to see more of our children and teens over this period, so hopefully today's advice will help you out with that. Before I get started in introducing our presenter, I want to tell you that we are grateful for our sponsors of the Parent Forum, an initiative of Sequoia Healthcare District in partnership with the Redwood City School District, Redwood City Together, and this organization, the Parent Venture. Please join me, everybody, in a really warm welcome for our friend, Eran Magen. Hi, Eran.
Hello, Charlene and Charlene's twinkling Christmas tree. Um, and hi, Craig. It's nice to see you again. Um, I'm a little sick, as you may hear. I might occasionally mute myself when I cough to spare you, but I also might not reach the button on time, so I apologize in advance. Turn the volume down just a little bit. Um, Bev, are you now able to admit participants? Because so far I've been doing it, but I don't know if you are on it now.
I I am, yes.
Okay, you are on it. Great. So, just to recap really briefly on what Charlene was saying, this part of the session is being recorded, but only the person in the green square is being recorded, which is me, as long as you don't make noise. So let that be additional motivation for you. Um, if you would like to turn on your cameras, that would be wonderful, because then I see the people who are hearing, and I can tell if you're kind of falling asleep, whether I should accelerate, or if you're all walking away, and I know that I need to start juggling more and so on. Thank you very much. Okay, so I'm going to start. You probably also want to see what I'm looking at. I'll do this. Okay, so I'll talk today about how we build goodwill with our kids, kind of what for and how, um, and then we'll open it up for conversation. I want to start with the most important piece by far, which is you're doing great. And in all likelihood, your kids are, about as well as they can be right now, which is probably pretty good. Good for you for coming here. Good for you for taking some time out to learn and think about parenting a little more. But, parenting is tough. I hope none of you hears any of what I say here as even hypothetical critique about what you're doing, right? You're parenting, you're having relationships with your kids are breathing and eating and spending some time with you and will spend more time with you later. You're doing a good job. This is just ideas for how to possibly make it easier for yourselves, maybe for your kids as well. The main thing that I hope you will remember after today is the following. I'll give it in the next 30 seconds for those of you that are coming in with a very limited attention span or very busy or very tired. Okay, so I just need you for 30 seconds, and then after that, you can either continue listening or just go get soup or something. The goodwill that exists in a relationship determines how easy or hard a relationship is. Every aspect of the relationship, right? When you're having a good day, when you're having a bad day, when you're fighting, when you're apologizing, when you're cooperating or not, everything. And so the focus is on building a lot of goodwill with your kid, between you and your kid. And the goodwill is built mostly because of things that happen every day, all the time, not because of huge gestures and gifts and sacrifices, just the way that you interact with your kid day in, day out. The focus of every interaction, ideally, not always possible in the real world, but ideally the focus of every interaction is creating more goodwill between you and your child. End of 30 seconds, go get soup or stay and talk with me some more. The relational strength, the amount of goodwill in a relationship is kind of like a bank account that has money in it, but instead of money, we have goodwill in the relationship, and we can put goodwill into a relationship or we can take it out using through different actions. And I'll go over what some of these actions are. The goal, of course, is to deposit as much as possible, deposit as much goodwill, and take out, withdraw as little goodwill as possible. Here's a quick kind of a dipstick test for how much goodwill there is between you and your child right now. The impossibly high fantasy level impossibly high, fantasy level goodwill is when your child goes out of his or her way to make you happy, right? Just sitting there thinking about ways to improve your life. You come back home, everything is sparkling. You wake up, coffee and, pancake and flowers served to your bed. The child will shush other children that are interrupting and then help you do your homework, right? Kind of. But when your kid really wants to do everything possible to make you happy because of their love and admiration for you, not for any other reason, fantasy level high. That's sort of the theoretical maximum. That's kind of like the speed of light of relationships. Medium, kind of reasonable high, is when you ask your child to do something, your kid goes, okay, and goes and does it. Just because, right? You don't need to nag and you don't need to even explain too much. Your kid is like, well, if my parents asking, that's probably a good idea and I want to help. And so, sure, I'll do it. Kind of a low but workable relationship strength is when you ask something of your child and your child sort of considers it. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe you need to encourage or remind or nag or kind of apply a little bit more energy, and eventually it happens, but sometimes it doesn't. Right? Most of us are somewhere between medium and low. If we're at kind of a low point, but we are forcing the child to do more things that the child doesn't want to do, we risk overdrawing the relational account, right? Which is where none of us wants to be, and some of us are at different points in time, because this is dynamic, right? You can go from high to low depending on how you handle the relationship. And the overdrawn account looks kind of like the inverse of the theoretical maximum strong relationship, right? That's when your child is sitting there just thinking about ways to make you annoyed, upset, unhappy, or something, right? Just like ways to get back at you. And you can think about it also as ways of um, reasserting power, right? Because if I can press your button, I have some power over you. And if it's very important for me to press your button, it's probably because I feel like you have so much power over me, right? That I need to reassert this somehow. I need to rebalance this somehow. So we don't want to be here, obviously. And ideally, we're aspiring to get as far up this dipstick as we can. So a little more information, but before that, a short break from our friends, the germs, and me coughing. Today's parenting talk brought to you by the letter G. Okay, so the relational bank account. If goodwill is the currency, what are the possible actions that happen? What do we see on the line by line when we look at the account statement? Actually, sorry, let me say first, goodwill, like I said, is everything, right? It predicts when there's more goodwill, there's going to be more trust. We'll believe each other more. We'll be more honest with each other. We'll be more vulnerable with each other. We'll put more effort into things that we do for the other person, right? As opposed to just kind of going through the motions. We'll actually try to do it well. We'll forgive the other person more, right? When they make mistakes, we'll cooperate more. All of these good things happen when there's more goodwill, when the relational account balance is higher. Deposits happen whenever you show your kid that you care about him or her, and or when you show your kid that you respect him or her. It's really simple. There are lots of ways to do it through the day. I'll talk about a few in a moment. I'm sure you know all of them and many more. But this is, again, one of the main key points. You show care and respect, you're making a deposit. You withdraw goodwill from a relationship when you ask the other person, the kid in this case, to inconvenience themselves on your behalf. And this is like a totally normal part of every interaction. Hannah, I'm grateful that you have the camera on, and by all means keep it on. I'm doing nothing here that requires you to look. I'm I'm saying everything also. So you're fine focusing on the road. Um, so asking somebody else to inconvenience themselves on behalf of us is a totally normal part of every interaction, right? I'm 5 minutes late. Can you wait for me? Sorry, Charlene, for not coming 10 minutes early to the session like I should have. Can you pass the salt? Can you pick up some groceries on the way home? Would you mind, cleaning the thing? Can you help me with the whatever? Right? Totally normal part of the relationship. But every time we do this, it takes away a little bit of goodwill, which is not a problem when there's a lot. also because we're constantly replenishing it. It's fine. But you know, these people that are always asking, always withdrawing, right? And if there's never replenishment happening, that can actually end up hurting a relationship. But by and large, in a healthy relationship, there's going to be deposits and withdrawals. Totally fine. But we want to be very careful about unnecessary withdrawals, like times when we demonstrate lack of care for the other person and lack of respect for the other person. And this is so easy to do. So easy to do. And I'll go over some examples of kind of unnecessary withdrawals that we make that end up hurting the amount of goodwill in the relationship. I'm focusing a lot here on collaboration because I think as parents, this is something that we think about a lot. We want to work with our kids and not against our kids. And we want to have a sense that we all share a vision of what it is we're aiming for and how we're going to get there. And I think doing that collaboratively is so much more pleasant for everybody and so much more sustainable than doing it through the application of force. Because we all have the ability to force our kids to do things, right? We have so many different kinds of power over them. We're physically bigger, we're taller, faster, we have more money. Other people believe us and not them. Like it's pretty hard to be a kid if you're in a battle with your parent. Like your parent's going to win every time until you're fairly old. Um, and so, but even though we can force them to do things, forcing them to do things is obviously not a show of respect or care, and it creates a withdrawal. And eventually the relationship really deteriorates. And that's not great too, because then they'll stop collaborating as soon as they don't have to collaborate or cooperate with us, right? And we want it to be intrinsic. We want our kids to want to cooperate with us just like we want to cooperate with them. So here are some thoughts that I had about how to bring about collaborative changes in your kids' behavior specifically, right? And I'll go over each one of those. It'll be pretty quick, but if you want to talk about any of those more, I can, of course, talk right up until the bout of coughing begins. So let me go through these one by one. Constant deposits, by far and away the most important part of what you can do to improve your relationships with your kids or anyone else, really, is making sure that you're constantly depositing goodwill. And you're doing it by showing care and respect. And you show care and respect by doing any of those things and also a million other things. But the main thing that I want to point out here is that these are things that you can do over as part of almost every interaction that you have with your kid. It's just about adopting these habits of doing these things and paying attention to these things, right? Saying a good, clear thank you when they do something well, praising them with some level of detail, right, about the thing that they did and the impact that it had on you or on somebody else. When talking about things that need to happen, explaining how it's going to help the kid or help you, which will help you then help them, and so on. Talking about how things that they did made you think or made you feel good or inspired you somehow, right? But showing them that they have an impact on you as well. All of these things, you know all of these things, I am sure. I want to focus just on one thing here, which I'll mention later on in a little more detail, which is this idea of respectful directions or respectful redirections. Remember, I was saying before that one way to withdraw from a relational account is to ask the child to inconvenience themselves for us. You know, clean your room is a classic one. Clear the table, wash the dishes, help make dinner, help your sister get dressed, you know, whatever the thing. Take the dog on a walk. But there are different ways to issue this instruction, right? It can be a request, it can be a nice request, it can be an instruction, it can be a harsh instruction. And it's very common for people without really noticing to instruct others quite harshly, especially kids who can't really do much about it, especially when they're little, right? And you kind of miss an opportunity because when you are being nice in situations like this, you're certainly not over withdrawing more than necessary, right? Instead of saying, clean your room, you can say, hey, Jerry, is this a good time for you to clean your room? And if Jerry says, no, now is not a good time, you say, okay, when do you think you can do it today before dinner? Totally different conversation now, right? Now Jerry has some ownership. Now you're not kind of coming down on Jerry like a ton of bricks. There's a back and forth. You're respecting a boundary that Jerry provided, not right now, but you're still clear that this needs to happen by a certain time, right? Very different conversation than no, right now. Now means now. Go do, which would result in the room being cleaned and the relationship deteriorating, and the room kind of being clean. Pick your battles is another important one. remember that every time you ask a child to do something that the child wouldn't naturally do, small withdrawal, right? So just be mindful of how many of those you're making over the course of a day or an hour. And think about which of those feel important enough to focus on, especially in light of the strength of your relationship, right? If you're saying, okay, I'm going into rehabilitation mode, my relationship with my kid is just not the best right now. There's been a lot of stressors happening and it's kind of shaky. So I want to focus on building the relationship. So you want to focus on these daily constant deposits. And you want to think before you ask your kid to do things that can be uncomfortable or inconvenient for your child. You still ask your child to do the things that are necessary, right? But think about how many extra things you're asking for as you're managing this relational account. It's really nice to be able to build a momentum of success. So, especially if there's something that your child is either resistant to or afraid of or something like that, starting with the easy things. Let's say there are a few things that you want your kid to do differently, right? Walk the dog, clear the dishes, do the homework, practice clarinet, right? And if you put all of these on your kid at once, there's a good chance none of these will happen well, right? And all of these will be a struggle. And one way to approach this is to say, you know what, reset. We're just going to pick one of those. I'm going to get totally off your back if you can do one of these things. Which of these is the easiest for you to do? And it may take a second for your child to believe you. But some benefits to Zoom, right? Because like nobody needs to be afraid of catching anything right now. Sorry about this. So it may take a second for your child to believe you when you say, look, I'm backing off. Like all these things that we've been arguing about for the past 2 weeks, done. Let's just pick one thing that you can do, right? And then as it becomes easier, you can talk about adding other things and so on. So you pick one thing that feels important. Like in your case, if you think about your things that you want your kid to do or do differently, right? What are like the top 3 things that you really wish your kid did differently? You can, I mean, actually do the exercise or just think about it. It's fine too. But what is the thing? Is your kid, at that phase, the rock star phase, when they come into the house and just kind of shed clothes as they walk, and there's like a trail of clothes and muddy footprints around the house, and you want that to change? Okay, that's a challenge. Are you wanting your kid to help drive a sibling someplace, right? And your kid is like, oh no, I don't have time for this. I'm too cool for it. Are you wanting your kid to help mow the lawn or help practice piano more? Whatever it is, right? Like what are a few, and then okay, how easy or hard would it be, do you think, to reach an agreement with your kid to do this thing? And how urgent is it really? Right? Like what happens if your kid doesn't improve in this thing in the next week, in the next 2 weeks, in the next month? Like is it actually urgent for some reason? And how important is it long term for this thing to happen? And then it's from those that I would encourage you to pick one thing and ideally start with something. I mean, if it's really urgent, then it's urgent, then you pick that thing. If nothing there is like super urgent, I would encourage you to start with the easiest one and literally have a conversation. Sit down and say, okay, you know what? I heard this talk today. The guy was coughing a lot, but between coughs, I think I heard him say we should really like try to agree on things more and rather than me just like slamming tasks down on you. So, I'm going to give it a shot. So listen, you remember these 4 things we've been arguing about? I'm just going to stop because it's not fun for me. I don't think it's fun for you. I want us to have a better time together. I just don't want to like run around nagging you the whole time. But these things do need to happen. So, which one of those do you think you could do? And again, it'll take some time to convince your kid you're really serious about this, right? But you pick one. Oh, good. I see more people are coughing. I feel less alone. Thank you, Matt. So, the goal in these things is, of course, to improve. If you want your kid to help clear the dishes or practice piano for an hour a day or take the dog on a walk afternoon and evening, you don't start with the hard thing right away, right? You said like let's do a little bit. You have a thing in mind, but you're going to break it into small stages, like steps of a ladder that are easy to climb, right? Can you be in charge of clearing the dishes one day a week? Can you practice piano for 2 minutes a day? Can you, right? Like it just needs to be something that's clearly more than now. Clearly more or better than now. And there's all separate session that we do on kind of building good habits and instilling these recurring behaviors and how to do it. This is, I'm sort of hinting in that direction here, but today the focus is on the collaborative process of talking with your kid about these things you want to have happen and saying, why is it even important? How is it supporting your goal and so on? Okay, what does success look like? What is the first step for this particular challenge that you picked that you want to work on with your kid? So everything I've talked about so far in terms of how I would talk with my son about these things, it falls under the heading of a consultation in my mind. Like I consult with my kid, right? There are things that I want, there are probably things that he wants, and let's figure out how we make it all happen in a way that works for everybody. We have to do this conversation well, because the conversation communicates so much respect to your child. And this is something you can do with a 3-year-old, right? And certainly any age above that. Right? It communicates so much respect. It gives them so much ownership, and it's modeling, right? Because they learn how to also talk with you when they need things, right? There's less demanding and there's more conversating. The conversation needs to happen at a good time. That's on you, right? Figure out when they're not tired, not hungry, not upset, not in a hurry, and so ideally over ice cream is what I'm saying, right? Pick a time where you can sit and have that conversation. Be really clear about how the goal is to improve the relationship and the goal, if that's something that feels maybe to both of you like an step, like, oh, we've been arguing a lot, or how the goal is to help your kid reach some goal that your kid cares about, or the goal is to help you feel better and more relaxed because it's more, because it's been very stressful for you to do whatever it is, right? But be really clear that ultimately the goal is to support and be there for your kid and enjoy your relationship more. And once you can agree on that, and once you can agree on what the goals are, of course, we want to live in a clean home. Of course, we want everybody to get their activities up time. Of course, we don't want the dog to explode in the house because nobody took the dog on a walk. Of course, we want you to be able to get into band because you've been wanting to. Once you can agree on the goal, you can agree on the method to getting there, right? And these things that you're suggesting are things that are very easy for your kid to do initially, ideally. Like shockingly easy, like things that your kid says, sure, I mean, if I just try, I'm going to succeed. And you're like, perfect. That's exactly what we want. And if you can't agree on a thing, like if you really want your kid to do homework, because your kid wants to do well in school vaguely, but your kid doesn't want to do homework or doesn't want to do them until after playing hours of online video games or what have you, then you can suggest experiments, right? Say, okay, you think it takes 30 minutes to do homework? Great. When do you have those 30 minutes? And your kid is like, well, I think I think tomorrow I'll wake up at 5:30 and do my homework. And you're like, really? And your kid says, yes, yes. And you say, okay, you want to try doing this for like the rest of the week and we'll see how it goes? And your kid says, yes. And you're like, great, let's give it a try. Worst case scenario, your kid's right. Hallelujah, right? Second, that's the worst. That's the best case scenario, maybe. Second best case scenario is you do it for 2 days. Your kid taps out immediately, saying, "I can't wake up at 5:30. My homework is not done." And you don't kind of lord it over the kid. You just say, "Okay, we tried your way. Didn't. What do you think was a problem? Just too tired. Okay. What's a solution? Do you want to go to bed earlier? Do you want to try like doing the homework the night before? Whatever it is." And at this point, again, a very different conversation. You've shown so much respect to your kid. You've allowed this kind of experiment. Very likely your kid will agree to an experiment that you propose at this point, right? Just for a couple of days. Let's see how it works. But the whole mindset here is like, we're talking about this, not me forcing you to do it. We're figuring out a way to do it that works. Okay, so if you are keeping this, if you're doing these tasks as we're going along, then maybe you identified a problem or thought about a thing that you want to help your child change in terms of behavior, and you think about what does success look like for you, and how does it start? What's like the minimum first step to go there? And then thinking about, well, how do I explain this to my kid? Oh, we should have done all this in the chat, huh? Yeah, now maybe a little bit late. But if you're inspired to share any of these things, if you've been doing them, you can put them in the chat just to inspire and impress the other parents here. Right? What the challenge is, what's like the easy thing that you're picking to start with, what's potentially step one, minimum improvement. How do you present this as beneficial for the kid? And then what's the right time for you to talk? All right. So just as a reminder, this whole thing is anchored around this idea of the relational bank account. We're trying to build goodwill. Withdrawals will hurt a lot of these things that we're doing, right? We might be doing a lot of deposits, but not really thinking about how we're taking out of the relationship. And there are a couple of things to think about in terms of withdrawals. One is what we're communicating to our child, the content, and the other is how we're doing it, of course, because just the wrong tone of voice can be so destructive so easily. So basic rules. Uh, rules is a strong word, but basic principles that I would recommend. One, be respectful, right? Pretend you're talking to somebody who has power over you, right? Just pretend. Like what would that look like? Like, would you do this with another adult? Would you do this with your parent? Would you do this with a friend, an adult friend? Would you talk to them that way, right? Whatever it is. Um, find somebody that triggers a respectful reflex in you, and ask yourself, like, did my latest interaction with my kids sound like that? Really think about how much you're asking your kid to inconvenience him or herself, right? It's very tempting, very, very tempting to ask your kid to bring everything to you when you need it, right? I'm on the couch, I'm comfortable, go get a glass of water, go get my phone, go do the thing. But like at some point, it kind of gets to be a lot, right? So like, what's really necessary here, especially if I'm trying to do other things, bigger things, right? Like go walk the dog and clean the dishes and drive your sister to work or whatever it is. As much as possible, when you're asking for things that are kind of out of left field, clarify the benefit that your child will experience as a result. By which I mean, so again, I keep coming back to Charlene's sentence, which I love so much and think about so much, right? Like it's good to connect the dots for people, and sometimes you need to put the dots a little bit closer for some people. I think I bastardized it, but that's the general idea. So your kids have a lot less experience and kind of situational awareness than you do, right? And so sometimes things are just so obvious to us that are not obvious to them. Let's, you know, uh, how about you go put the book that you need to return to the library tomorrow, just put it on the bench next to the door. Because this way we'll remember tomorrow to take it with us on the way out. Like just that, like otherwise they're like, why is dad asking me to put the books everywhere all the right? Like just explain your rationale. It's good education, it's good training and thinking, but also it just makes it clear that you're on their team, right? You're trying to help them with your suggestions by and large. Let's do the thing so that the thing. Aiming in general for minimum meaningful improvement. Like I said before, right? Not looking for the big jumps because then everybody's disappointed, but noting the small improvements that are meaningful and commenting on them. Good job. Wow, that was more than before. This was great. I see that was really helpful. Thank you for doing the thing. Good work. Things like that, right? There are always opportunities to do this. Um, time your reminders is kind of along the lines of uh, minimally inconveniencing. So just thinking about how many times are you asking your child to do something again and again, and they might do it later, they might not. Do you want to let go of something um, that you've been asking, they've been ignoring? Do you want to say like, is this difficult for you to do? What's the problem here, right? Because I did ask a few times, but again, the tone is curiosity, right? Not so much like, do this now, I asked you to do. Like, what's happening? Like, why is this hard? Would it be easier another time? Or we need to do this right now. Like, please go do it. All right. Last principle here is swooping. That's my favorite. So when your kid did something good, prioritize saying something good, like as soon as possible. And ideally, if you can catch your kid doing something great from a distance, and then you kind of run in, drop your compliment, and run out, sort of like the opposite of the seagull principle. You you observe, and when they do the right thing, you might sit in one room and you might ask your child to clean up the living room, organize the living room, right, from all the toys. and you're in the kitchen happily washing dishes or not. Oh, the halo thing is happening again. And you're in the kitchen washing dishes or not, enjoying yourself or not. But at some point you hear the clink, clink, clink of like stuff getting moved around the living room, and you just like shout back. You're like, "Thanks, Kenny, good job." Right? To the, like catch them doing good things, especially from a distance from you. Right? I call that swooping. So it's a big replenishment. So, and you want to do it especially after making an ask. Right? You make the ask, they're inconveniencing themselves for you, maybe willingly, maybe because the relationship is good, great. But as they do the thing, you want to come in and replenish as soon as you can. For praise to have maximum effect, I'll remind you the stuff that I'm sure you've heard before, but it feels relevant. Good praise is specific and genuine, right? So good job is nice, but that was an amazing front tuck. I saw you like trying so hard to keep your head down and like stay in the position. Like that was awesome. That's a much bigger praise, right? Daddy, I got a B on the test. Oh, good work. That's one thing. Or like, oh, great. That's another one. But like, wow, good for you. You studied really hard for that one, right? I'm really impressed. Better. Similarly with cooperation, when they're doing something that you requested, just say thank you. And if you can add a few more details, even better, because then they feel more seen and it feels more genuine. And ideally, it is genuine. You don't want to be disingenuous because kids are telepathic and they'll catch you and every time. So if you asked Kenny to clean the living room and Kenny or organize, the toys in the living room, and then Kenny does it, you walk to the living room and you look around and in your best amazed voice, assuming Kenny is, 8 or younger, 6 or younger for girls, you say, "This is fantastic. Did you do this by yourself? You cleaned all the toys? There were like 18 toys in here. This is awesome." Right? Take a few seconds to do it. And it's so powerful for the relationship for you to notice everything that you're like, wait, the bulldozer and the racing truck and the drum and the sword, and you put everything away, right? And you can see the kid like just glowing with every detail that you add. And the same thing for bigger kids. You're like, you got a B? Let me see the test. Look at that. You got 4 out of the 5 differential equations correctly. This is amazing, right? You care. You notice. It's awesome. It's so much nicer. So invest in the details. So I talked for a very long time, given how little oxygen I have, I think, available. And thank you for bearing with me. So making constant deposits is really important, probably the most important thing by far. And you'll notice that deposits are really kind of bracketing all of this thing, right? Because swooping is all about making deposits right after making withdrawals. Picking our battles in terms of when and what to withdraw goodwill on, looking for improvements rather than perfection, consulting a lot with the kids. That's a big deposit, right? Making sure that we're avoiding landmines, and also it's such a big deposit in and of itself. Okay, I'll stop here. I'll do one little plug in the end. These are 2 websites that Charlene mentioned before because she's nice, that I run. One is parentingforhumans.com. One is called divorcingdads.org. There are recordings and materials on both of them. You can probably guess what each one of them is for. The Divorcing Dads in particular is to help dads in the process of divorce, but also after, just stay in their kids' life and have the motivation and the tools to do it and to co-parent well and just reduce stress and all of that. I think it's just very sad. Dads often kind of drift out of their kids' life, not always willingly, and it's just, I think, to everyone's detriment. And so these are tools for dads to stay connected, um, and sort of effectively and positively co-parenting. And then the Parenting for Humans, more general parents of humans who are humans, and tools and resources to do that. Each of the websites has all of these things that are listed down there. That's not true. The podcast is just in the Divorcing Dads, actually. Including groups for parents who want to just get together, usually every couple of weeks on Zoom, and just think with other parents about like what's going well, what's not going well, and what's my strategy. It's just taking out time to think about parenting rather than let it rush by us. So that's everything I had to say about goodwill with kids.